Second year in the Senate, but she and her new book are having a nationwide impact, even out in California, where an excerpt from that book has become an issue in the state's governor's race. Republican Neil Kashkari is seeking to challenge Democratic Governor Jerry Brown, but in late 2008 he was overseeing a $700 billion troubled assets relief program, more popularly remembered or unpopularly remembered as TARP, while Warren was chair of the Congressional Oversight Panel. In her book, Warren accuses Kashkari of lying to her about cash infusions to big banks having been completed, while negotiations for an additional multi-billion-dollar bailout to Citibank were simultaneously underway. Kashkari has made his experience running the TARP program a central component of his campaign, and one of his senior advisors told us this week that Warren's account is false, and he questioned her timing, saying that Warren has had many opportunities to mention this before and hasn't. The fact that a freshman Massachusetts senator is roiling the political waters in California, though, is further testament to the force that Elizabeth Warren has become in American politics, and especially within the Democratic Party. The New Republic anointed her last year as Hillary's nightmare, a liberal voice that can connect with the Democrats' surging populist strain. Warren insisted again this week that she is not running for president in 2016. Just about everything you'll read about this tour is how Elizabeth Warren is not running for president. But at the very least, she's actively campaigning for the ideas she once represented, with or without her, in the next race for president. To start building pressure now so that if, say, Hillary Clinton ends up in the White House, she will feel compelled to pursue a Warren-like agenda. Next week, some of the country's top liberal donors will gather in Chicago for a meeting of the Democracy Alliance. And these donors, Politico reports, could play an important role in determining whether the post-Barack Obama Democratic Party embraces the rising tide of progressive populism or hews to a more cautious, centrist course. In other words, whether the Hillary Clinton wing or Elizabeth Warren wing will seize the reins. And while Warren raised a massive amount of money in her 2012 campaign, $42 million, a lot of it in small donations, her core message is not aimed at big donors. If anything, she's going straight for the populist base, railing against the political power of those with the biggest checkbooks.
What we have to remember is they have concentrated money, concentrated power on their side, and it shows up. It gives them great advantage. But what we have on our side, we have our voices and we have our votes. And as long as we stay active, as long as we stay engaged, we can win.
All right, joining the conversation, another well-known figure in Massachusetts politics. He's still with us, former Governor Michael Dukakis. We have USA Today's Susan Page, who recently sat down with Senator Warren for an interview. And BuzzFeed's John Stanton is back as well. So, Susan, I'll start with you. Just this last week, you had the chance to spend time with Elizabeth Warren. You did an interview with her. I'm just curious what your takeaway is from that about what Elizabeth Warren's trying to do with this book, what she's trying to do in politics, and just your impressions of her generally from spending that kind of time with her.
You know, I think the power of Elizabeth Warren and her appeal is that she actually believes what she's saying, and that when you ask her a question, she's inclined to give you an answer. This is rarer than you might think in the city of Washington, D.C. So, for instance, when I was interviewing, I said, should some bankers have gone to jail in the aftermath of the 2008 financial meltdown? And first she said, you know, these are complicated issues, they're involved in the courts, typical senatorial answer. Then she said, she stopped, she said, no, wait, let me try that again. Yes.
That is not. Well, so when we get to this question, I mean, everybody raises it, but it's, you know, I read somewhere this week, they said, you know, she says she's not running for president. Why does she write a book that certainly by the time some of the wording, this is the kind of book that a candidate would put out, though, isn't it?
You know, I think that she's not running for president. I think it's not surprising she'd put out a book given her the enormous appeal she's shown she's had and the desire she clearly has to influence the debate. But I don't think she's ruling out the idea of running for higher office. She signed that letter urging Hillary Clinton to run. I think it's probably unlikely that she challenges Hillary Clinton. But, you know, we got a lot of time till 2016. I think if Hillary Clinton didn't run, I would expect to see Elizabeth Warren out there.
Yeah, and she would have, we've already seen in these polls, when she's included with Hillary now, I mean, Hillary obviously wins big, but there is a significant block of support already just for Elizabeth Warren. You know, John, covering Capitol Hill, I mean, what about Elizabeth Warren in the Senate? Because it's only been about a year and a half in the Senate. What is her reputation like there, and how has that gone so far?
I think her reputation is one of having built a very good PR machine. I think that she's sort of created this bad problem for her, frankly, within the Senate, because she's created such a huge profile for herself. You start to say, okay, well, what have you done? And she hasn't really done that much at all in the Senate, but she's also only been there a year and a half. And so, you know, she's created this persona. There is this huge sort of operation around her, which a lot of times it's unclear how much she's involved in it and whether or not she's sort of giving a tacit blessing to push her as this potential rival to Hillary, or if she's actually heavily involved with it. And so I think there are certainly some members that I've talked to who side-eyed her a little bit and say, oh, look, there she is.
I mean, that's the idea of like the clubby Senate, right? Like the freshmen are supposed to be seen and not heard, yet it really takes decades to build up class. I mean, is there a way, look, if she convinces, I guess first herself, and if she convinces the rest of the Senate she's not running for president, she's not using this as a platform for that, is there a way for her to sort of become an effective member of the chamber?
There is, and I mean, I think that there is the model of Ted Kennedy, where a very sort of liberal member that comes in and finds a way to still work with people and get legislation done. I mean, I would say that my concern about it is that given the current politics and the way that the relationships in the Senate are working, she's more of like the left's version of, Ted Cruz or somebody who comes in and is going to have a very hard line, very progressive position, and it's going to be difficult for her to find common ground with Republicans who are increasingly going to a more conservative side. And so I'm not sure that she is the type of member that is going to have huge success as a legislator.
Governor Dukakis, I wonder, what you make of that. Obviously, you have, Elizabeth Warren well from up there in Massachusetts, and it does strike me that, what Susan's saying, I've definitely noticed about her, how clear and direct she can be, how it's unusual in a politician, and how clear she is on what it is she wants to accomplish. And when you look at sort of the stodgy, slow-paced Senate, where with all of the sort of decorum and traditions, is the Senate a good match for her in terms of actually accomplishing something, or is the benefit of it that she has a platform to get these ideas out?
Well, she is who she is. She's very genuine, as you point out. But remember, she succeeded a guy named Kennedy, who was very effective, but Ted Kennedy made no bones about where he stood on things, and often broke with other members of the Senate, including Democrats. So she's following on what I think is a fairly familiar path. She has remarkably good political instincts, and I say that in the best sense of the word. I remember when Kitty and I sat down with her at the beginning of the campaign and talked about how this had to be a 2,157 precinct campaign. Every precinct with a precinct captain, block captains, and by God, she did it. I mean, I had great grassroots organizations in Massachusetts, but hers was the best I'd ever seen, and she really gets it. So I don't think there's anything particularly unusual about this. She's not going to run for the presidency. She shouldn't, in my opinion. I mean, she's just this a year and a half. She has a lot to contribute. And remember one other thing. When it comes to her effectiveness, she's already been very effective, even before she got into the Senate. I mean, the Consumer Protection Agency was her creation, and she got it done. So she's not just making speeches. I mean, she can be very, very effective, and I think she's going to be a very effective player in the Senate. And I have enormous respect for her. All
right, well, we're going to squeeze a break here and pick this up, but I want to ask, what is next for Elizabeth Warren? Then she's out on this book tour now. What is it she wants to achieve with the book tour? What does she want to achieve when she's back in Washington? A little bit beyond that. Susan Page talked to her this week. We'll talk to her about that when we come back.